Students, as in the previous class I started with the neural control and coordination chapter. In that the deleted part I was discussing, so you might have already gone through the video of the reflex action. After the topic of the reflex action and the reflex arc, the next topic is about the sensory reception and the processing. It means where you are going to study the sense organs. Okay, so before we move on to the about the lesson where the sensory reception and the processing, it includes the eye and ear. Before I start with the eye, we shall understand what is the meaning of sense organs. So these sense organs, when we hear the term organ, it means it is made up of the tissues. So that tissues, how we are going to define the tissue? As the tissue is defined as the group of the cells. Okay, so how can we define then the sense organs? Sense organs are groups of the specialized cells. Now we consider our skin as the sense organ, we consider our eyes, nose, the ear, tongue as the sensory organs. Why? Because they are going to sense something. If take the example of your nose. Okay, so whenever you are moving on the street, if any good fragrance, if frying any fragrance, if you come across, immediately within a fraction, whether you are able to sense it or immediately your nose is going to take that smell and it is going to make you understand that that smell is, that fragrance is from so and so food only. Okay, you might have experienced with this, or even you can take one more example. When your nose takes the smell of any of the food, immediately your tongue is going to your salivary glands, they are going to start secreting the saliva. So here what I want to say is, when your nose is going to take the smell, so here you observe the smell is acting as the stimulus. So how we are going to define the sense organs? Sense organs are the groups of specialized cells which receive the stimulus. You take the example of your eyes, you see, okay, after 10 years if I come and stand in front of you all, so immediately your eyes are going to take me as the stimulus, and by using your own memory you are going to identify that this is so and so lecturer. If not a name, at least you feel that somewhere I might have saw that person, or somewhere I have seen it, like that you will start feeling. That's why the sense organs are the groups of specialized cells which receive the stimulus. Okay, so here with respect to the sense organs, so I have shown in the image, so there are 5 sense organs, where these 5 sense organs they are having, when they are going to receive the stimulus. Now your eyes are going to see something, means so they are going to receive the stimulus from that object. Your nose is going to take the smell, means that smell is going to act as the stimulus. So which type of cell is going to receive the stimulus? So they are being called as receptors. So actually, how many types of receptors we have? We have 3 types of receptors. They are external reception, internal receptors, or proprioceptors. So there are totally 3 receptors. But remember students, what you are going to study now, they all are under the external, receptors. So what is the meaning of external receptors? External receptors means where the receptors are going to detect the external stimulus. I said that one more example I gave, one more type I said, that is internal receptors. Internal receptors means who are going to detect the internal stimulus. So what is that internal stimulus? Take the example, that is a change in the blood pressure or a change in your body temperature, that is homeostasis, when your condition of the body internally, when it is going to get changed, so that is being detected with the internal receptors. And third type is proprioceptors. What is this proprioceptors? Remember, these proprioceptors, they will be present in your tendons and the ligaments. So there are three types of receptors, but what you are going to study, the sense organs, they come under external receptors because they are going to detect the external stimulus. So how many types of external receptors are there? 5 types of external receptors are there. So what is that? So in this first image you are going to see the first diagram of the ear. So here the ear is going to act as a phonoreceptors. Then below that you can see a picture of eyes means they are going to help for your sight or the vision. So that vision, we call that receptor as photoreceptors. Then you come across with your the nose image we are going to observe. So that nose, it helps in smelling, it is going to help in detecting the smell. So that receptor is called as a olfactory receptor. Then the next you can see the image, a person that is going to lick the ice cream. So that is the tongue which is going to lick the ice cream. So there the tongue which is having the taste buds, they are going to help in the tasting of the food. So that kind of the receptors are called as gustatory receptors. Then the last type is the skin, that is where it is going to detect the touch, and that kind of the receptors are called as tango receptors. So these are the 5 receptors, 5 types of the receptors which comes under the external receptors. Is it clear to you? So we shall start with the your so here again you can come across with the image about the sense organs, 5 sense organs. I said these are the organs that are having the ability to detect the changes in the environment, and that is being conveyed to our central nervous system. So we shall continue with the sense organ, that is the eye. So here we all have the 2 eyes, means we have a pair of eyes. So where these eyes are present? The eyes are present in the socket of the skull, and that socket of the skull we call it as the orbit. Okay, so generally when you see your own eyes, what you are able to see, that is the called as the eyeball. So that eyeball is spherical in its shape. Okay, so that eyeball is having the 3 layers, they are called as the sclera, the sclera and cornea and the choroid. So here the sclera is considered to be as the outermost or the external layer of the eyeball, where that external layer of the eyeball is made up of the dense connective tissue. Then the anterior part, where you can see in the diagram where it is appearing like the bulged, so that is called as the cornea. So that cornea will be present only at the anterior part of the eyeball. Then the middle layer of the eyeball is called the choroid. So that middle layer of the eyeball called the choroid, so that is going to appear in the bluish color, and it is consisting or it is containing more and more number of the blood vessels. Here one peculiarity we are going to observe with respect to the choroid. The complete eyeball is having actually the choroid, the middle layer, that is called as the choroid. But the distribution of the choroid is not similar. Means distribution of the choroid layer is not similar. Means some part of the eyeball is having very thick layer of the choroid. Some part of the eye is having very thin layer of the choroid. So where the thick layer is present, almost the eyeball, the 2/3 of the eyeball is having the thick layer, and that is called as the choroid. Where 1/3 of the eye is having the thin part, thin portion of the eyeball, so that is being called as the ciliary body. So this ciliary body, it is made up of the ciliary muscles. So here this ciliary body or the ciliary muscles, that is present only at the anterior part. Why? Because the posterior part, it is having the choroid layer which is very much thick. This anterior part, it is having very thin, that's why it is being named as the ciliary body. And what is the use of the ciliary body? The ciliary body is going to help in the changing of the size of the eye according to the distance of the object. See, you might have observed, whenever you see far things, far objects, you make your eyes smaller. Okay, when you are seeing the objects from very nearer, you will make your eyeball to get enlarged. So the changing of the eyeball, the shape, the size is being mainly dependent on the ciliary body. And this ciliary body is only continuing to form a pigmented and the opaque structure called as the iris. So what is this? What is the use of the iris? So this iris, one more next part we are going to study with respect to the eye, that is called as the pupil. So there I will tell what is the use of the iris. But until then, you can remember this iris is when the light rays enters, no, so that light is going to hit our eyes only. So this iris, it in the eye, you might have observed the colored part means it the green color, blue color, brown, black, so that is considered to be as the iris. So that's why we call the iris as the visible colored portion of the eye. So this eyeball is consisting of a transparent crystalline membrane called as the lens. So this transparent crystalline membrane called the lens, they are being attached by the ligaments with respect to the ciliary body. So this eyeball is containing the transparent crystalline layer, or the membrane is called the lens. So this lens is being attached to the ciliary body. So when they are being attached to the ciliary body, who are going to help? That is the ligaments. So what are the ligaments? You have come across with the tendons and the ligaments. Ligaments means bone to bone connection. One bone is being attached to the another bone. So here the ligaments are going to help for the attachment of the lens to the ciliary muscles, or we also call it as the ciliary body. Then in front of the lens, it means in anterior part of the lens, is having the one more aperture, and that aperture which is going to be surrounding the iris. So the iris which is surrounded by in front of the lens, and that is called as the pupil. So here the pupil, so you can observe the pupil here in the diagram. So I said the first, the lens and the ciliary body is being attached with the help of the the ligaments. Okay, in front of the eyeball, there the what we observed the lens, so that lens aperture is being iris surrounded by the iris, and that is called as the pupil. Okay, so here the diameter of the pupil means the complete diameter. You might be knowing what is the meaning, the term meaning of the diameter. So the diameter of the pupil is regulated by the muscle fibers of the iris. Okay, so here you can see, we will come to know what is iris and what is the pupil. So I said I'll be telling the meaning of iris. So here when the light is going to enter, so that light enters in through the pupil. Okay, then when the light enters through the pupil, then we can it is going to make us to see the things. So here the iris, it is going to control the size of the pupil. Means the iris is going to control the size of the pupil size. How it is possible? That is, during the daytime the light rays will be more, that's why the size of the pupil gets constricted. But in the evening time, when you enter the dark rooms, like the size of the pupil gets enlarged. Why it is going to get enlarged? So that the light can enter more inside your inside the iris. Once again I will tell that iris is going to control the size of the pupil. How it is going to, iris is going to control the size of the pupil? During daytime the light will be more, that's why the size of pupil will be smaller. But in the evening time, when you enter the dark rooms, so that's why at that time what happens, the size of the pupil gets enlarged. When it gets enlarged, when it becomes more amount of the light can enter inside your pupil. Okay, so this is how the iris and the pupil are being dependent. Then the inner layer of the eye, and that inner layer of the eye is called as the retina. Okay, so here the retina is consisting of the 3 layers. Okay, so where those 3 layers of the cells from inside to outside, means first inside they are having the ganglion cells, then next is bipolar cells, and the next one is the photoreceptor cells. Photoreceptor cells means these are the cells who are having the receptors to take the stimulus, and that stimulus is the photo, means it is having the ability to take the stimulus with as a light source. So how many photoreceptor cells are there? 2 photoreceptor cells are there. What are those 2 photoreceptor cells? They are mainly the rods and cones. So these rods and the cones, they are, see, depending upon the photoreceptor cells, the vision is being divided as 2 types. It is called photopic and scotopic, or we call it as daylight vision and the twilight vision. Then these photoreceptor cells, they are consisting of the photosensitive proteins, and those proteins we call it as the photopigments. So those photopigments are formed by the opsin, which is a protein part, and it is made up of the retinal. So that retinal is nothing but it is an aldehyde of vitamin A. Aldehyde means you all know that it is a functional group which is with the carbon dioxide, the carbon, hydrogen and the oxygen. So here I said that there are 2 photoreceptor cells. What are those 2 photoreceptor cells? It is the rods and the cones. So that receptor cells, they are consisting of the pigments, and those pigments are called as photopigments, or they are also called, as it is made up of the proteins, they are also called as the photosensitive proteins also. Then here these rods and the cones, because of the rod photoreceptor, two types of the photoreceptor cells, the rods and cones, due to that there are two types of the vision we are going to observe. What are those vision? They are called as the daylight vision or photopic vision. Okay, so what is this daylight vision or photopic vision? So daylight or photopic vision means here they are these photopic vision, they are going to use the only the rods. Okay, when they use the rods, the objects will be visible, but when the objects are visible, so those objects will be in the black and white. Okay, then scotopic means they are going to use the cones, and that is going to provide the color to it. So here so you can observe so how it is going to make with the help of the rods and cones. So you can observe, I said upside where they are going to use the rods. So there you observe when they use the rods, the object will be visible in the black and white. You can see it in the upside. But where they are going to use the cones, so that is going to give the color to it. The same image you are going to observe with the color. Okay, so this is the use of the photoreceptor cells, that is the rods and the cones. Okay, then these the rods and cones, as I said, they are consisting of the protein. So the rods, they contain a purplish red protein, and that purplish red protein is called the rhodopsin. It is called as the rhodopsin. Okay, or we also call it as the visual purple. Here this visual purple or rhodopsin, which we consider it as the purplish red protein called as the rhodopsin, it is containing the derivative of the vitamin A. Then here the human eyes, they are having the three types of cones which is going to possess the own characteristic photopigments, that is with respect to the we call it as with a short form we call it as the RGB. RGB means with a combination it will be helping, that is red, green and the blue lights. Okay, then here one more thing we are going to observe. The in case of the eyes, there are the optic nerves. What is that optic nerves? So here you can observe the shape of the eyes, so where it is being labeled as the optic nerve. So they are the nerves which are being supplied to our eyes. So these optic nerves, they are going to leave the eye, means they are going to move out of the eye, and the retinal blood vessels, and then they are going to reach, or they are going to finally they are going to get connected to our brain. But here in the eyeball, there is a region where that region of the eye is not consisting of the photoreceptor cells. The photoreceptor cells, where they are not present in the region of the eye, and that part where the photoreceptor cells are not present, that part we call it as the blind spot. Okay, so there is a yellowish pigmented spot, and that yellowish pigmented spot we call it as macula lutea. So what is this macula lutea? Macula lutea is the yellowish pigmented spot present at the blind spot that we call it as the macula lutea. But where the macula lutea is present, and that pit, that central part or the central pit where the macula lutea is present, that we call it as the fovea. So what is this fovea? Fovea is it is the outermost portion of the retina where the cones are being very much densely packed. So here it is the point where the visual activity or the visual acuity or the resolution is very much high. The fovea is the region where the cones are being densely packed. Because of the cones are being densely packed, the resolution is said to be as very much high at the fovea. Then we shall come across with the another part of the eyes, that is with respect to the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor. So what is this aqueous humor and the vitreous humor? So here the aqueous humor, it is the space between the cornea and the lens, whereas the vitreous humor is the space between the lens and the retina. So here the aqueous contains a watery fluid, and that watery fluid where it is present, we call it as the aqueous humor. Where the vitreous, that is a gel, like a transparent gel, where it is being present in between the lens and the retina, that we call it as a vitreous humor, or we also call them as the vitreous chamber and the aqueous chamber. So these are the parts of the eyes. So you actually you need to understand, you have to remember all these parts of the eyes. Okay, so let us move on to the working of the human eye. So how the eye is going to work? Okay, so before we move on to the mechanism of the vision, so first understand all the parts of the eyes. So I said the three parts of the layers with respect to the eyeball, that is sclera, cornea and choroid. Then after that choroid, I said about the 2/3 of the middle layer is very much thick, that's why we call it as choroid. Where it is thin, we call it as the ciliary body. Okay, then so that ciliary body is again continuing, and it is going to form an opaque structure, and that is called as the iris. So this iris again, in front of the eyeball there is one more transparent crystalline structure of the eyeball, that is called the lens. So here the lens are being attached to the ciliary body with respect to the ligaments. Then I said about the pupil. After that, the innermost layer of the eye is called as the retina. So that retina is made up of the three types of the cells called ganglion, bipolar and the photoreceptor cell. Then I said about the two types of the photoreceptor cells, that is rods and the cones. With respect to the rods and cones, two types of the vision, photopic, scotopic. Then I said that a protein, red protein, which is present in the rods, called as the rhodopsin, which is the derivative of the vitamin A. Then with respect to the optic nerves, the nerves which are being supplied to our eyes are called the optic nerves. Where the region of the eye is not containing the photoreceptor cells, it is called as the blind spot. Then in front of the blind spot there is yellowish pigmented spot, that is called as the macula lutea, where it is present in the with the central part pit, and that is called as the fovea. So this fovea is made up of mainly the very much tightly packed cones, that's why it is having high resolution. Then we came across with the aqueous chamber and the vitreous chamber. Okay, so the next is the mechanism of the vision. So what is this mechanism of the vision? So before I move on to the mechanism of the vision, you might have observed that is with respect to the constriction of pupil, dilation of pupil. I mean, constriction of pupil and dilation of pupil means the pupil size is going to get enlarged. Okay, that we call it as dilation, and the pupil size is going to get constricted, means it is going to become very smaller. So how that is being possible? Due to the intensity of the light. For example, if the intensity of the light is more, then the size of the pupil is going to get constricted, it is going to become very smaller. If the intensity of light is very much less, then our pupil size is going to get dilated means it is going to get enlarged, so that more amount of the light can enter due to the intensity of the light is less. The best example is when you have watched a movie in the theater. Okay, so in the theater what happens, completely it will be dark inside, and once that after sitting for 3 hours, when you come out of the theater, immediately what happens, you are going to enter the bright room. Then when you enter the bright room, means where the intensity of light is more, then you try to close your eyes. When you are going to try to close your eyes, means your pupil size is going to get constricted. Okay, take the reverse, that is when you are going to enter the dark room where the intensity of the light is less, and you are trying to observe the objects or the things or the surrounding to you. So that time your eyes are you are going to enlarge your or dilate your pupil, so that intensity of the light is less and more amount of the light can enter, so to make your vision to be as much as clear. Okay, so by keeping this in your mind, we shall study the next part of the eye, that is the mechanism of the vision. So when the light rays enters with respect to the visible wavelength only, so that is going to enter first, it is going to enter on the retina. Okay, then when once it enters or when once it moves to your retina, so remember that retina is consisting of the two photoreceptor cells, that is the rods and the cones. So when the light rays with respect to the visible wavelength is being focused on the retina through the cornea and the lens, means directly it is not going to enter the inner layer. First it is going to enter your cornea, then the lens, and then it is going to enter the retina. So there, by the time it enters the retina, impulses will be generated, means the potentials are being generated. Okay, then here what happens, once the light is being reflected from an object, means when you are going to observe an object, so that light rays are going to enter through your cornea and lens, and then at last they are going to focus on the retina. When they focus on the retina, here you should remember that the photosensitive compound or the photosensitive pigment or the photopigment in the human eye, that is composed of, one is protein part and another one is the retinal part, that is the opsin and the retinal. So here what happens, once the light rays get reflected and reaches the retina, so there that retina is made up of a photopigment, and that photopigment is having the two parts, that is opsin and the retinal. So this, when the light enters, the opsin is going to get dissociated from the retina, or retina is going to get dissociated from the opsin. So when the light is going to induce means when the light enters, the dissociation of the retinal from opsin is going to result. When the retina is going to dissociate from opsin, remember that opsin structure is going to get changed. Why opsin structure is going to change? This opsin is nothing but it is in the form of the helical structure. So when it dissociates from the retinal, so what happens, that helical structure of the opsin gets changed. It may become the twisted, or it may become coiled like. So when the structure of the opsin is going to get changed, that is going to cause the membrane permeability. Membrane permeability means you have to recall the action potential, how is being generated when the impulses are being passed, the influx of the sodium ions, or the movement of sodium inside, and movement of the potassium ions from inside to the outside. So with respect to the action potential generation, that topic you have to recall. So the structure of the opsin being changed, it is making the permeability also to get changed. When the permeability is going to get changed, obviously the potential difference is being generated. Once the potential, where the potential difference is being generated, remember that is in the photoreceptors, because the opsin and the retinal, they are the photopigments which is present in the photoreceptor cells. So this potential difference which is being generated in the photoreceptor cells, so that is going to produce, or in the that is going to form a signal in the form of action potential. So when the signal is being generated, so that signal is being generating the action potential inside the ganglion cells through the bipolar cells, because these ganglion cells and bipolar cells, they are the cells which are present in the retina. So this is going to transmit this action potential which is being generated inside the retina, that is being transmitted to the optic nerves. So that optic nerves is going to carry out to the visual cortex, which is a part of the brain. So here when once the action potential or the impulses, once they reach the brain, so what happens, they are going to analyze the impulse, and then they are going to form the image on the retina. Okay, so then based on your memory and the experience, you are going to identify that object. So here you can observe the light rays. First it is going to reach the cornea, then through the lens it is going to reach the retina layer. So that retina is made up of the photoreceptor cells and the different types of the cells. So when it reaches the photoreceptor cells, the structure of the photopigment is going to get altered. When the photopigment's structure is going to get altered, it is going to generate the action potential. When the action potential is being generated, so that impulse is being transmitted to the optic nerve, and that optic nerve is going to carry it to our brain, and then we are able to identify that object. So this is with respect to the mechanism of the vision. Thank you for listening, students. Please go through this, try to understand. If once you have not understood, again and again you listen to the topic, then you will be clear with that. Thank you.